Evolution as a power mechanic has taken different forms within the Naruto universe, whether that's the various stages of the Sharingan, Naruto's many Rasengans, and even the very concept of the new generation surpassing what came before them. So evolution as a concept isn't anything new to the universe itself, and I believe we're seeing it play out in Boruto as well. You see, Himawari now possessing a miniature version of Kurama within her body does raise questions about her relevance to the current power system. If this is indeed the same Kurama that we know and love, or an even less powerful version of him due to his miniature size, how will Himawari scale to the current characters? Is this truly the power Damon thought could easily dodge his attack? Well, the answer to that last question is obviously no. Damon is a character who was stated to possess power greatly surpassing Jigen himself, to the point where he was able to easily dismantle a limited code without needing to use his true power. So suffice to say that if Damon sensed the power within Himawari that would have allowed her to easily dodge one of his attacks, it simply means that the Kurama that once was couldn't be what's behind that intensity. That then leads us to three possibilities, but first we're going to address number one, which is that Kurama evolved. You see, as I said before, evolution isn't a foreign concept to the Naruto universe, so it isn't far-fetched to say that Kurama's power grew or changed over time. The concept makes even more sense when you take into account the lore of the kitsune from Japanese mythology. Now, to put it simply, a kitsune or fox spirit is a type of yokai that were believed to possess superior intelligence and paranormal abilities that increases as they get older and wiser. It's also said that it takes 1000 years of age for them to acquire the ultimate nine tails form, which is when the kitsune becomes a tenko or celestial fox, recognizable by its white, silver, or golden fur. Now, tenkos are often worshipped as gods by humans, mostly because they possess the power of gods once they attain this form. And just like other kitsunes, tenkos can also possess humans. And when this does happen, the person gains the tenko's power of clairvoyance along with its immense power. Now, this might seem like it doesn't mean much because Himawari didn't gain the power of clairvoyance and Kurama's fur didn't change color. But what if I told you that all of this did indeed happen? You see, if we go back to chapter 55 when Kurama initially disappeared, we couldn't really tell if anything about him changed due to his transformation, mostly because it's in manga format, which is black and white. But if you go to the anime adaptation of this scene, there is a slight change that most of us didn't notice, which is that Kurama's fur color changed to silver. This happened after he bumped fists with Naruto and started to slowly dissipate. His fur color slowly faded to silver while Naruto remained the same. Now you guys might say that his fur color changed to grey instead, not silver, but I actually extracted a sample from the episode and analyzed it using a color picker, which identified it as silver. Even so, you could also argue that this is just a coincidence and the change in color was just meant to depict his chakra burning out, which is 100% possible. But what if that wasn't the case? You see, this all goes back to what happened to Kurama's chakra once he achieved Baryon mode, which is influenced by the mechanic behind the form itself, which is very similar to that of Sage mode. In fact, I would go as far as to say that they're somewhat the same thing with a very minute difference. Now, if you go back to when the form was first introduced in Boruto's manga, Kurama said that we should think of it like nuclear fusion, which is a similar principle to how the sun produces energy. He then went on to clarify that both his and Naruto's chakras are serving as kernels to produce a new type of energy, which is dubbed Baryon energy. So this simply means that the energy used by this form is an evolved version of what it was before, now powerful enough to exceed the strength of Ishiki Otsutsuki. Now, what I found most interesting is what it meant for Kurama going forward. You see, it was already established in Naruto that a tail beast will always re-emerge sometime after death. I believe this was first mentioned by Kushina when she offered to take the nine tails with her to death, so that the interval until he re-emerges again will be delayed. We also saw this play out with the three tails as well after he re-emerged a few years after dying in the body of Rin. So this isn't anything new, nor should it be surprising. Now, I do understand that some believe that this would be different since Kurama's chakra burnt out due to Baryon mode, which implied that this resurrection process wouldn't apply to him. Even so, I want to point out that the story itself never implied this to be the case. Some mostly misinterpreted the nine tails explaining why Naruto wouldn't have died due to losing his tail beast, similar to what almost happened in Shippuden. So the change in the process is that the Biju's chakra vanishes from the body instead of being extracted, which is actually what causes the Jinchuriki to die. There's zero indication that this now also means that Kurama wouldn't be able to return. In fact, Kurama said that he came to say farewell as far as that goes, and then went on to say that this may be their last conversation. Now the key thing to focus on here is the use of "so far as that goes" and the word "may." This implies that it isn't a certainty that this will be their last conversation, which also implies that Kurama will return at some point. So them meeting again purely depends on if Naruto manages to stay alive until that point, which is why he then tells him to be careful not to die too soon. So now that we've established the logic behind Kurama's return, let me explain why I think he retained his Baryon mode chakra. You see, it all goes back to chapter 55 once again, when Kurama explained that the form uses both of their chakras as fuel to create the Baryon mode energy, to the point where, as Kurama puts it, my chakra and yours will get consumed until one or both of our lives runs out. He then later clarified that the price for Baryon mode was his life, which means that it was consuming his chakra at a higher rate than Naruto's. That's why Kurama's entire chakra pool ended up getting consumed, which eventually led to his death. Now what this also means is that Kurama's entire chakra pool was transformed into this new Baryon mode energy, which means that if Kurama was to re-emerge, his base chakra pool would be made up of Baryon mode chakra, not the type of chakra that he had before. We have to remember that the entire process of a tail beast re-emerging after the death of their Jinchuriki is really just their remaining chakra leaving the body and reforming somewhere else. So if that base chakra is changed into something else, that new thing will be the base material behind what comes next. So if this is indeed what happened, that would explain why Damon felt Himawari could dodge his strike based on the power he sensed within her body. That's the same power that was stated to exceed Ishiki, someone likely stronger than Damon. It also makes sense why he would refer to that feeling as intensity, since Kurama compared it to a byproduct of nuclear fusion, which is similar to what happens in the sun. So this all lines up with Kitsune's turning silver once they achieve the power of gods, which is what happened to Kurama once all of his chakra turned into Baryon chakra, thus losing his normal color and turning to silver. With that said, there is one main issue with this theory, which is the logic behind Kurama reforming within Himawari's body. See, typically the tail beast would just reform in a random forest as seen with the three tails, so Kurama doing this within Himawari is a bit weird. Even so, it's important to note that nothing is set in stone when it comes to what happens when a tail beast re-emerges. So something happening with the three tails doesn't then mean that it must also happen with every Biju. What I mean by this is that it's entirely possible that the tail beast can choose where they emerge, and it likely never chose a human before since they weren't friendly with humans in the past. So it's entirely plausible that Ninetales would choose to reform within Himawari since he's familiar with her presence. Then again, I do think it's a bit deeper than that, since you'd think the Ninetales would have chosen Naruto, his lifelong companion, but he chose his daughter instead. Now the reason why I think this happened is because Himawari was a tether to the Ninetales since she possessed a portion of his chakra. This goes back to both Boruto and Himawari possessing the whiskers of the Ninetales, which implies that they were altered by his chakra at a genetic level. We've also seen this before in Naruto, who was conceived by the Ninetales Jinchuriki, and even the Golden Brothers who consumed the stomach wall of the Ninetales. So this likely means that both Boruto and Himawari were born with a portion of the Ninetales chakra within their bodies. So if the Ninetales was to reform within someone using a tether to its own chakra, the only candidates would be Boruto, Naruto, and Himawari. Now Naruto likely burnt out all of his Kurama chakra with Baryon mode, which is confirmed by Sakura in the anime. Boruto likely wasn't an option due to Momoshiki's presence and the Karma Seal. So the only remaining option was Himawari, which is why I chose her instead. There's also the possibility that this new Kurama doesn't have the memories of his past, which is why he didn't address Himawari by her name and also asked her if she knew what he was. Now this could normally be the case whenever this happened before and the other Bijus just filled in the three tails when it happened to him. Or it could be the case that this is special to Kurama since his chakra burnt out before it reformed. So a great way to visualize this is to say that a tail beast chakra is normally semi-liquid, but it turns fully liquid once a Jinchuriki dies. It then goes on to reform into that semi-liquid over time, which is then when it reforms the tail beast. Now in Kurama's case, or Baryon mode's case, his chakra went from semi-liquid to liquid, then from liquid to gas, which means that the change in state was way more drastic, thus leading to the loss of memory. So even though the gas eventually cooled and went back to a semi-liquid state, it could never be the exact same as it was before. Now I might be wrong on this and Kurama still has his memories, but if he doesn't, then that would be a great way to explain it. By the way, the second possibility behind Kurama's return is that it isn't Kurama at all, but his offspring. As I mentioned before, Himawari was born with a portion of Kurama's chakra, which could have developed into a new version of Kurama over time. That would explain why it's a miniature Kurama and it's not the same size as it was before. It just took a long time for it to form a physical body. It also plays into the process of evolution as well, since this new Ninetales could just be naturally stronger than his parent, similar to the Venom symbiote and its offsprings in Marvel Comics. Then there's also the possibility of his chakra mingling with Hamura's chakra from Hinata and Hamura's chakra from Naruto, thus manifesting this hybrid mutated version of Kage's chakra. The possibilities are truly endless. This would also explain why Himawari had that hidden mysterious power long before Kurama died. Because while Kurama emerging again can explain the power Damon sensed, since that happened after Kurama passed away, it doesn't explain the power that was shown for Himawari multiple times before that point. So it possibly isn't the case that Himawari has a Baryon mode version of the old Kurama, but just an evolved version of his offspring. Now the third possibility is that it's both in some sense. So it's possible that Himawari had this mutated version of Kurama's chakra since conception, which explains their mysterious power level and split personality. The only difference here is that it never developed into a new version of Kurama. She just had the chakra similar to the Golden Brothers. So in essence, she likely gained this new version of Kurama after he reformed within her body using his tether to that portion of his chakra, which explains why it's a baby Kurama. He's likely just 3 years old. Now I'm personally leaning towards the third option, since it not only factors in the Baryon mode chakra and the change in the fur color, but it also addresses the power she displayed before Kurama died in the battle versus Ishiki. There's also the fact that evolved kitsunes possess advanced clairvoyance, which contrary to popular belief isn't just the ability to see the past or future, it's really just advanced visual prowess in general, which by the way is what they seem to focus on when it comes to Himawari's locked on mode when she taps into her hidden power. There's also the fact that her Byakugan has this silverish tint as opposed to the pinkish white everyone else possesses. So everything just lines up perfectly for it to not make sense, but of course I can be wrong, so we'll see. With that said, let me know your thoughts on the video itself. Do you think that this is an evolved version of Kurama, or do you think it's the same Kurama with the same power level, which wouldn't make any sense because she would be absolute garbage to the current power system. Well, not garbage because Kurama isn't that weak, but you get what I mean. You know, she wouldn't be relevant. So do you think she's using the same old Kurama, an evolved version of Kurama, or is it a Baryon mode version of Kurama? Let me know your thoughts down below, and of course I'll respond to every single comment. With that said, again, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.